Deep within the Louisiana swamps, a hidden door in a laundry room led to a forgotten crypt, where jars held preserved human organs and a diary detailed over 50 case studies of clinical murder. Who were these victims? And who was the meticulous hand behind their demise? How could such a horrifying secret remain concealed beneath a facade of Southern hospitality? Would you ever trust a friendly face on a lonely road again? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're drawn to the chilling whispers of forgotten legends, make sure to subscribe to Host of Silence so you don't miss a single tale. To truly understand the chilling legacy of the Davenport family, we must first step back to 1884, when their grim tradition began. Louisiana, 1884. The air hung thick with humidity, carrying the scent of cypress and decay from the surrounding bayou. In the heart of this verdant, forgotten corner stood the Davenport Hotel, an oasis of Southern charm. Its white-painted facade, adorned with intricate gingerbread trim, seemed to shimmer under the relentless sun, promising respite to weary travelers. Inside, the polished cypress floors gleamed, reflecting the soft glow of gas lamps, and the aroma of Clementine Davenport's famed cooking always promised comfort and sustenance. This was the public face of the Davenports, a picture of impeccable hospitality, a family dedicated to the well-being of their guests. Thaddeus Davenport, the patriarch, carried himself with a quiet dignity, his silver hair neatly combed, his eyes a steady, knowing blue. Once an undertaker in New Orleans, a profession from which he had retired with a comfortable sum and a certain detached calm, he now managed the hotel's accounts and the comings and goings of its transient inhabitants. His demeanor was one of benign authority, a man who understood life's finalities but offered only a gentle welcome. Clementine, his wife, was the culinary heart of the establishment. Her reputation for exquisite Southern fare preceded her, drawing guests from miles around. Her kitchen, a bustling haven of steam and spice, produced dishes that were both hearty and delicate, each bite a testament to her mastery. Her smile, though warm, rarely reached her eyes, which held a subtle, unreadable depth. Their sons, Gideon and Jonah, were the hotel's brawn. Tall and quiet, they handled the heavy lifting, the maintenance, and the general upkeep of the sprawling property. Their movements were efficient, their faces often impassive, betraying little beyond a dutiful diligence. They were the silent shadows, always present but rarely noticed. And then there was Abigail, the youngest, a vision of youthful grace. With her wide, innocent eyes and a voice like a whispered melody, she was the jewel of the Davenport Hotel. She flitted among the guests, offering sweet tea and even sweeter conversation, her presence a balm to the lonely and the lost. She had a particular talent for drawing out the private woes of solitary travelers, her empathy a seemingly endless well. Yet, behind this meticulously crafted tableau of Southern grace, a darker truth festered. The Davenport Hotel was no mere inn. It was a carefully constructed trap, and the family, a unit of cold, calculating predators. Their hospitality was a lure, their charm a poison, and their purpose, the systematic harvesting of lives for profit. The method was as precise as it was insidious. Clementine's celebrated meals, particularly those offered to guests who seemed unattached or financially prosperous, often contained a hidden ingredient, a tasteless, odorless dose of arsenic, administered with practiced ease. The poison worked slowly, mimicking the onset of common ailments. Abigail, with her captivating innocence, would then move in. She would seek out the vulnerable, the isolated men and women who found themselves far from home and yearning for companionship. Her gentle inquiries, her feigned concern, would disarm them, making them feel safe, cared for. She would listen to their life stories, learn of their assets, and subtly guide them towards a deeper trust, ensuring they would not question their failing health. As the poison took its toll, mimicking the effects of sunstroke or the dreaded swamp fever that plagued the region, Thaddeus would oversee the final arrangements. The family would express profound sorrow, offering condolences and, often, suggesting that the deceased had no next of kin, or that the cost of transporting the body back home was prohibitive. With his background, Thaddeus understood the delicate balance of grief and practicality. This was where Gideon and Jonah truly excelled. Under the cloak of night, with the bayou's nocturnal chorus as their witness, they would transport the lifeless forms to the murky depths of the surrounding swamp. The water, thick with sediment and teeming with life, was an efficient accomplice. Bodies submerged there rarely resurfaced, or if they did, They were often so disfigured by the elements and creatures that identification became impossible, and the cause of death, even more so. The bayou swallowed secrets whole, leaving no trace. The family would then claim the deceased's belongings, their small fortunes, attributing the deaths to the harsh realities of the Louisiana climate. Another unfortunate soul succumbed to the heat, or to the mysterious fever, a tragic but commonplace occurrence in the isolated wilderness. The local authorities, few and far between, and often disinclined to investigate deaths attributed to natural causes in such a remote area, rarely questioned the Davenports' accounts. The hotel continued its operations, a beacon of apparent safety, drawing in new unsuspecting guests. The cycle continued, a macabre rhythm played out against the backdrop of Southern charm, until one sweltering afternoon in the summer of 1884. A lone carriage, its wheels stirring dust on the unpaved road, approached the Davenport Hotel. From within emerged a man of precise bearing. His tailored suit slightly rumpled from the journey, but his gaze sharp and unyielding. Dr. Virgil Harper, a forensic physician discreetly dispatched from Washington, D.C., stepped onto the porch. He was a man of science, accustomed to dissecting truths from falsehoods, and he carried with him not a traveler's light heart, but a heavy burden of suspicion. He had come seeking answers to whispers that had traveled far, whispers of too many unfortunate deaths in this otherwise idyllic corner of Louisiana. He presented himself as a weary traveler, requesting a room. The Davenports, ever the picture of hospitality, welcomed him with their practiced smiles, unaware that their carefully constructed world of shadows was about to face the harsh light of scrutiny. Dr. Virgil Harper arrived at the Davenport Hotel as a man weary from travel, seeking solace for an unspecified malady. His entrance was marked by a quiet dignity. His posture slightly slumped, a subtle affectation designed to invite the very hospitality he intended to dissect. The air within the grand foyer was thick with the scent of aged wood and a curious, underlying sweetness, almost cloying. Thaddeus, the patriarch, emerged from the shadows of a grand staircase, a figure of imposing height and a smile that seemed to stretch a fraction too wide, his eyes holding a depth that belied the superficial warmth. Clementine, matriarchal and seemingly benevolent, soon appeared from the kitchens, her apron smelling faintly of spices and something less identifiable, offering a cup of steaming broth with an unsolicited, insistent kindness. Harper settled into his room, a spacious chamber overlooking the town square, but his true focus lay not on recuperation but on observation. From the vantage of his window, or during carefully timed excursions to the common areas, he began to piece together the peculiar rhythm of the Davenport. The family operated with a synchronized efficiency that bordered on the unnatural. Thaddeus presided over the dining room with an almost ritualistic formality, his pronouncements on local affairs always vague, always steering conversations away from personal histories or future plans. Clementine's meals, though exquisitely prepared, often left guests feeling unusually sated, a heaviness settling in their limbs that encouraged early retirement to their rooms. Gideon and Jonah, the sons, moved like shadows, their tasks seemingly mundane, hauling luggage, tending to the stables. Yet their gazes were always watchful, their expressions often unreadable. Abigail, the youngest, possessed an ethereal charm, her soft voice and attentive demeanor drawing out confidences from lonely travelers, her presence a comforting balm before their eventual quiet departures. The hotel, Harper noted, experienced an unnerving turnover. Guests arrived, often solitary figures seeking respite or passage, and for a day or two, their presence was a vibrant thread in the hotel's tapestry. Then, a hushed word would circulate, a sudden illness, an unexpected change of plans, a pressing family matter, and their room would be empty, their belongings gone, their absence swallowed by the hotel's pervasive quiet. There were no tearful goodbyes, no lingering farewells, merely a swift, almost imperceptible vanishing. The family offered minimal details regarding these departures, deflecting inquiries with practiced ease, their excessive hospitality serving as a subtle shield. Harper, with his mind trained to dissect anomalies, recognized this pattern not as a series of unfortunate coincidences but as a calculated design. The lack of genuine sorrow or concern from the family, coupled with the rapid succession of these illnesses, raised a red flag in his forensic consciousness, a silent alarm bell ringing in the quiet halls of his suspicion. His investigations began subtly, disguised as idle strolls. He explored the hotel's common areas, tracing the patterns in the worn carpets of the sitting room, running a hand over the polished banisters of the main staircase, lingering in the echoing emptiness of the billiard room. He noted the precise placement of furniture, the way light fell through certain windows, the faint, persistent scent that permeated every corner. He ventured outside, walking the perimeter of the sprawling property, examining the well-tended gardens, the stable house, even the less frequented parts of the grounds. His eyes, accustomed to seeking out discrepancies, registered every misplaced stone, every unusual shadow. His methodical survey eventually led him to the hotel's laundry room, a humid, steamy space tucked away at the rear of the main building. It was here, amidst the rhythmic churn of washing machines and the scent of lye soap, that his keen insight latched onto something peculiar. Set into the far wall, partially obscured by stacks of freshly laundered linens, was a door unlike any other in the hotel. It was made of rough, unpainted wood, sturdier and more utilitarian than the elegant paneled doors that graced the guest rooms and public spaces. Its iron hinges were heavy, and a formidable old-fashioned bolt secured it from the outside. There was no handle on the outer side, only a small, almost imperceptible keyhole. It seemed to serve no obvious purpose within the context of a laundry room, its presence an anachronism, a jarring note in the hotel's otherwise carefully curated facade of genteel comfort. The family, he had observed, rarely entered this room, leaving its operation to a quiet, almost spectral maid who seemed equally disinclined to linger. Harper felt a growing certainty that this door held a secret, a key to the hotel's unsettling rhythm. He returned to his room, feigning a sudden bout of fatigue, but his mind raced with possibilities. He spent the remainder of the day in a state of carefully controlled anticipation, waiting for the opportune moment. The evening descended, cloaking the hotel in a deceptive tranquility. The last of the dinner guests retired, and the soft glow of gaslights cast long, dancing shadows. The family's footsteps faded into the upper floors, and a profound silence settled over the Davenport, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. In the deepest hour of the night, when the house truly slept, Harper slipped from his room, a small, meticulously crafted set of tools concealed within his coat pocket. He moved through the hushed corridors like a phantom, his steps soundless on the plush carpets. The air was colder now, carrying a faint, earthy scent that hadn't been present during the day. He reached the laundry room, the darkness within almost absolute. The scent of lye was stronger here, mingling with something else, something metallic and faintly sweet. His fingers, guided by memory and touch, found the rough wood of the door, then the cold iron of the bolt. With practiced precision, he worked at the lock, the delicate clicks echoing loudly in the oppressive silence of the room. A soft thud signaled the bolt's release. He pulled the heavy door inward, revealing not another room but a gaping maw of darkness. A steep, narrow flight of stone steps descended into an abyss, the air growing colder, heavier, carrying with it a damp, musty odor. The beam of his small, concealed lantern cut through the black, revealing rough-hewn walls and a floor of packed earth. This was no ordinary storage cellar. As he took his first cautious step down, the beam of his lantern wavered, catching a fleeting reflection in the darkness below, a glint of something that shouldn't be there. A subtle shift in the air, a faint, almost imperceptible sound, prickled the hairs on the back of his neck. He was no longer alone in the silent, suffocating darkness of the Davenport Hotel's hidden depths. Dr. Virgil Harper, a man driven by a grim duty, descended into the hidden depths beneath the Davenport Hotel. The passage, concealed behind a false wall in the pantry, led not to a typical cellar but to a crypt of unspeakable horrors, a testament to the family's profound depravity. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of chemicals and decay, a chilling prelude to the revelations awaiting him. His lantern cast dancing shadows upon the damp stone walls, illuminating a scene that would forever haunt his waking thoughts. The subterranean chamber was not merely a storage area but a macabre laboratory. Rows of glass jars lined sturdy wooden shelves, each containing meticulously preserved human organs. Hearts, livers, and kidneys floated in amber liquid, silent witnesses to countless atrocities. The sight sent a shiver down Harper's spine, a visceral confirmation of the anonymous whispers that had drawn him to this desolate place. Adjacent to these ghastly exhibits, a collection of surgical instruments lay displayed on a long, scarred table. These were not the common tools of a country doctor. They were instruments of advanced design, far beyond the technology of the era, gleaming ominously under the dim light, their sharp edges hinting at precise, methodical cruelty. Amidst this grotesque tableau, Harper's gaze fell upon a leather-bound journal, its cover worn and its pages yellowed with age. It was Silas Davenport's diary, a meticulous record of his family's abominable enterprise. As Harper began to read, a cold dread settled deep within his bones. The diary detailed over 50 clinical case studies, each entry a chilling account of a victim, their symptoms, their demise, and the subsequent dissection and preservation of their organs. The true nature of the Davenport murders was laid bare, not random acts of violence, but a methodical, scientific pursuit of human experimentation, a twisted quest for knowledge masked by the hospitality of their isolated inn. The entries spoke of various poisons, their precise dosages, and the observed effects on the unfortunate travelers, transforming their deaths into empirical data for Silas's perverse research. Absorbed by the horrifying revelations, Harper meticulously gathered the evidence, his hands trembling as he placed a few of the smaller, more portable jars into his satchel alongside the invaluable diary. The sheer scale of the Davenport's malevolence was staggering, far exceeding his darkest imaginings. He was so engrossed in the grisly proof, so burdened by the weight of the monstrous truth, that he failed to register the faint creak of a floorboard above, the subtle shift in the oppressive silence. A sudden, guttural roar shattered the stillness of the crypt. Gideon and Jonah Davenport, their faces contorted with a feral rage, appeared at the hidden entrance. Their eyes, devoid of any humanity, fixed on Harper and the satchel clutched tightly in his hand. The element of surprise had vanished. The hunter had become the hunted. A desperate, frantic chase erupted. Harper, fueled by adrenaline and the terrifying realization of his peril, bolted from the chamber. He scrambled up the hidden stairs, the heavy thuds of Gideon and Jonah's boots echoing behind him. The hotel, once a place of deceptive comfort, transformed into a labyrinthine death trap. He careened through the darkened corridors, past dusty furniture shrouded in sheets, his breath ragged in his chest. The Davenports, intimately familiar with every twist and turn of their macabre domain, pursued him relentlessly, their menacing grunts and threats echoing through the empty halls. Harper could hear the frantic pounding of their feet, the furious shouts of their pursuit, drawing ever closer. He burst through the main doors, gasping for air, into the cold embrace of the night. The moon, a sliver of silver in the inky sky, offered little illumination. The surrounding wilderness, once a symbol of isolation, now became his only hope of escape. He ran blindly, crashing through underbrush, the thorns tearing at his clothes, the branches whipping against his face. Gideon and Jonah, like bloodhounds, were hot on his heels, their figures silhouetted against the pale moonlight, their determination chillingly palpable. He could hear their heavy breathing, the snapping of twigs under their feet, agonizingly close. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Harper plunged into the dense woods, putting distance between himself and his pursuers. He narrowly avoided a grasping hand, a desperate lunge from Gideon that would have surely ended his flight. The thick foliage offered a slim chance, and he exploited it, weaving through the trees until the sounds of his pursuers faded into the night. He had escaped, but the memory of their faces, contorted with murderous intent, would forever be etched into his mind. He clutched the diary to his chest, its pages now damp with sweat, his only irrefutable proof. Without hesitation, Harper made his way to the nearest town, securing a horse and pushing it to its absolute limit. He rode through the night, a man possessed, the horrors of the Davenport Hotel fueling his desperate journey. He arrived in Baton Rouge, exhausted and disheveled, but with the evidence intact. He immediately presented Silas's diary and the jars of preserved organs to the authorities, laying bare the full extent of the Davenports' monstrous crimes. The officials, initially skeptical, quickly grasped the gravity of the situation as they sifted through the gruesome evidence. A contingent of law enforcement officers, their faces grim with determination, rode back towards the secluded village and the ominous Davenport Hotel. The journey was long, filled with a grim anticipation of the horrors they expected to uncover. However, upon their arrival, they found only an eerie silence. The hotel stood abandoned, its windows like vacant eyes staring out into the desolate landscape. Every room was empty, stripped bare. There were no bodies, no belongings, no trace of the Davenport family. They had vanished without a trace, evaporating into the vast, unforgiving wilderness as if they had never existed. The case of the Davenport Hotel, once a horrifying discovery, transformed into an even more terrifying mystery, a chilling legend whispered in hushed tones, a tale of unspeakable evil that simply disappeared. The strange disappearance of the Davenport family from their secluded North Carolina inn left behind little more than whispers and a pervasive chill in the air. Authorities, baffled by the complete lack of physical evidence or a logical explanation for their vanishing act, eventually closed the case, attributing it to a collective flight from deaths or perhaps a spontaneous, if inexplicable, decision to abandon their lives. Yet, the local folklore persisted, a dark shadow extending from the empty inn, suggesting something far more sinister had transpired within its walls. The year was 1884, and the world believed the chapter on the Davenports was closed. They were gravely mistaken. As the years unfolded, a disturbing pattern began to emerge, not in North Carolina, but across the southern United States. From the humid lowlands of Georgia to the rolling hills of Tennessee, and from the fertile plains of Alabama to the dense forests of Arkansas, an unsettling wave of disappearances plagued family-run inns and boarding houses. Travelers, often solitary figures or small, unassuming families, would arrive, seeking respite and hospitality, only to vanish without a trace. Their belongings, their horses, sometimes even their luggage, would remain, but the individuals themselves simply ceased to exist. Local law enforcement agencies, initially treating each case as isolated incidents of wanderlust, banditry, or simple runaways, soon found themselves confronting an unnerving regularity. The reports began to accumulate, forming a mosaic of eerie similarities. The inns involved were invariably small, often remote, and run by families known for their almost excessive, cloying hospitality. Guests spoke of lavish, comforting meals, rich with spices and unique, almost intoxicating flavors, served by hosts who seemed to anticipate every need. Yet, shortly after these meals, a strange lassitude would overcome the travelers, followed by their inexplicable disappearance. The patterns were too striking to ignore: the warm welcome, the distinctive, often sweet, dishes, the sudden, silent void where a person had been just hours before. Detectives, struggling to connect the disparate cases across state lines, found themselves mired in frustration. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no blood, no ransacked rooms. It was as if the victims had simply evaporated into the southern night. The limited forensic science of the era offered no answers, and the lack of a clear motive or a single, identifiable perpetrator left the police at a dead end, their investigations collapsing under the weight of their own futility. The cases became cold files, whispered legends in small towns, tales of phantom guests and vanishing acts attributed to the inscrutable whims of fate or perhaps something darker and unseen. The chilling saga of these unexplained disappearances continued unabated for nearly 2 decades, a slow-burning horror that spread like a silent contagion. Then, in the crisp autumn of 1901, the long-standing mystery took a crucial, horrifying turn. In a quiet, unassuming town in rural Missouri, a family by the name of Whitlock, proprietors of a modest inn, found themselves under scrutiny. Local authorities, responding to a tip about an unbearable stench emanating from their property, obtained a warrant to search the premises. What they discovered beneath the inn's floorboards, in a hidden cellar, defied belief and plunged the quaint community into an abyss of terror. The air in the subterranean space was thick with a cloying, putrid sweetness, a smell that clung to the throat and seared the nostrils. Rows upon rows of glass jars lined crude wooden shelves, each one filled with a milky, preserving liquid. Within these jars, ghastly, discolored fragments floated, human organs, meticulously preserved, each a grotesque trophy. The discovery was unspeakable, an affront to every notion of human decency. The Whitlocks, a seemingly respectable couple with 2 grown children, were immediately apprehended. Under intense interrogation, their initial denials crumbled, replaced by a confession that sent shivers down the spines of the seasoned investigators. They spoke not of their own depravity, but of instruction, of guidance. They revealed that they had not acted alone in spirit, but as disciples of a macabre philosophy. They confessed to being oriented and trained by a man named Thaddeus Davenport, the patriarch of the very family who had vanished years prior from their North Carolina inn. The Whitlocks described a secret society, a clandestine order known to its adherents as the Order of Stillness. Thaddeus Davenport, they revealed, was not merely a murderer, but a high priest of a perverse doctrine, a master of a method he called fatal hospitality. He had taught them the subtle art of poisoning, the precise concoctions that induced a peaceful, untraceable demise, and the grim rituals of disposal and preservation that ensured no trace of their victims remained. He had instructed them in the art of cultivating trust, of lulling their chosen prey into a false sense of security before ushering them into eternal stillness. The chilling revelation echoed through the interrogation rooms, a horrifying testament to a legacy of terror that transcended the physical presence of its originators. The Davenports had not merely been a family of killers, they had been architects of a horrifying methodology, propagators of a dark creed. Their disappearance had not marked the end of their malevolent influence, but rather the seeding of their evil across the land. The Order of Stillness, born from the twisted mind of Thaddeus Davenport, lived on through his indoctrinated disciples, each new in a quiet, unassuming temple to his dark teachings. The legacy of fatal hospitality, a silent, unseen horror, continued to claim its victims, a chilling testament to the enduring power of a meticulously crafted evil, perpetuated by those trained in the art of welcoming death. The shadow of the Davenports, though unseen, stretched long and cold across the American South. This chilling narrative, whispered from the forgotten corners of the past, serves as a stark reminder. How thin is the veil between welcoming hospitality and a sinister embrace? It challenges us to consider the deepest shadows that can fester within seemingly ordinary lives, within the very fabric of family, unseen by the world. It begs the question of what truly lurks behind the closed doors of seemingly innocuous places, and how easily trust can be twisted into a weapon. What, then, do you believe truly breeds such insidious evil? And what does it say about the human capacity for both kindness and unspeakable cruelty? Share your darkest reflections and theories in the comments below. And if you dare to explore more tales that linger in the shadows, be sure to subscribe to our channel.